For the uninitiated, Carol Ann Duffy is a Scottish poet and playwright who made history by being appointed as Great Britain's first woman poet laureate. And it only took 400 years. Now, while Duffy's verse is widely acclaimed for her feminist and otherwise radical takes, I find that I am more drawn by the sense of emotional urgency embedded in her verse, which comes to life in full technicolor through her choice of words and style. And in opting to use tools as simplistic as the turn of phrase and line breaks to carry her poetry, I suppose she's made it something that even a poetry cynic or an amateur would cherish. In Catherine Weiner's words for The Guardian Weekend, her poems are accessible and entertaining, yet her form is classical, her technique razor sharp. She is read by people who don't really read poetry, yet she maintains the respect of her peers. Reviewers praise her touching, sensitive, witty evocations of love, loss, dislocation, nostalgia, while fans talk of greeting her at readings with claps and cheers that would not sound out of place at a rock concert. Before You Were Mine. I'm 10 years away from the corner you laugh on with your pals Maggie McGeaney and Jean Duff. The three of you bend from the waist, holding each other or your knees and shriek at the pavement. Your polka dot dress blows round your legs. Marilyn. I'm not here yet. The thought of me doesn't occur in the ballroom with 1,000 eyes, the fizzy, movie tomorrow's the right walk home could bring. I knew you wouldn't dance like that. Before You Were Mine, your ma stands at the close with a hiding for the late one. You reckon it's worth it. The decade ahead of my loud, possessive yell was the best one, eh? I remember my hands in those high-heeled red shoes, relics, and now your ghost clatters toward me over George Square till I see you, clear as scent, under the tree with its lies, and whose small bites on your neck, sweetheart. Cha-cha-cha, you teach me the steps on the way home from Mass, stamping stars from the wrong pavement. Even then, I wanted the bold girl winking in Portobello, somewhere in Scotland before I was born. That glamorous love lasts where you sparkle and waltz and laugh before you were mine. Something that I've long struggled with as a young adult woman is the unreal expectation from a new mother to leave behind her life as she knew it. Not just because there now exists another living being that is desperately dependent on her, but also because it's the only justifiable outcome of an apparently all-powerful instinct whose absence or reduced effect would render the mother inexplicably odd. Something that I've long struggled with as a daughter is being able to imagine my own mother's life before she was, well, mine. And while I have had conversations about the carefree days of her youth, this poem is a stark reminder of what a desperately dependent living being replaces or rots. Before You Were Mine was published in Meantime and is written in 4 stanzas of 5 lines each in free verse. The poem in its entirety is an apostrophe, a poetry device where the addressee is an inanimate object or an abstract form, with the addressee in this case being her mother from the past. The poem is set 10 years before the speaker's birth. She sees her mother with her friends laughing uncontrollably as her polka dot dress blows round her legs. The early mention of Marilyn in describing the dress is the first suggestion that the speaker believed her mother was headed for the world of glitter and glamour and that she'd have made it if not for her. In the second stanza, when the speaker reiterates, "I'm not here yet," as readers, we're forced to recognize the reality that we wouldn't otherwise be witness to her mother in this carefree and natural state of existence. Her mother's dancing in the ballroom, enjoying fizzies, another metaphor for the effervescent and the unbothered, looking out into romantic, movie-worthy futures for herself. And then she goes home to her mother, who chides her for coming home late, but hey, it was worth it. In the third stanza, the speaker questions her mother's claim, as we all should, I suppose, that the years spent with her child were the best of her life, even with the loud and possessive yelling. In the last stanza, the speaker recollects her mother teaching her to dance, but she was stamping stars on the wrong pavement. This is a reference to the Hollywood Walk of Fame. For the uninitiated, the Walk of Fame is a landmark that consists of stars embedded in the sidewalk, with each star dedicated to, well, a star of Hollywood. This is the poem's final and most persuasive suggestion of what the speaker's mother left behind. Even then, dancing on the pavement, she remembers wishing to meet her mother from when she was a bold girl walking and winking by the sea at Portobello, a coastal suburb in Scotland. She ends the poem by insisting that even if only in memory, the glamour and the love from when she was before her still lasts. Does it really though, as a parent and as a mother specifically, can you really go back to live out the dreams you left behind? And if you don't, are you being an honest advocate for chasing dreams to your child? I don't know yet. But till I find out, this poem was an excellent clue. Now, if you're the speaker in this poem, I hope you buy your mom a new pair of red heels. And if you're the mom, I hope you take a walk along the beach in a polka dot dress with a fizzy in your hand. You may be someone else's today, but you were always yours first. Thank you for watching this video from the Verse Vault. If you enjoyed it, remember to let me know in the comments down below. If you're new here, I hope you find enough to stick around and hit subscribe. See you in the next one.